So up next for Kolchak is the Energy Eater, because some sort of entity is eating energy. Well, as it goes, this is very similar to the previous episode of the Spanish moss murders in that the stipulation here is folklore is true. This time, Native American folklore. Although, admittedly, a lot of American folklore has its roots, just about all of it, in Native American folklore. Yeah. So in this scenario, you've got this brand new hospital. It's all advanced and everything, and the community's excited about it. And Carl is assigned to go cover. It's it's already in operation for the most part, but to get a tour of it and all the details. Pretty boring story for Carl, who likes to chase monsters and all that stuff. But as luck would have it, there's a monster stalking this building, and apparently already has been, and they're just keeping it hush-hush because they don't quite understand what the problem is. And the problem is their patients keep getting fried. All kind of electrical disasters, foundation destruction to the structure of the building, all this sort of thing keeps appearing. And Carl, of course, stumbles in on this. He hears people muttering about it, so he goes and snoops, and sure enough, there's all this, damaged floors and whatnot. And one thing leads to another. He strikes up something of a friendship of this nurse, and she's, very talkative about it, so he's getting all the details. And turns out the building was constructed by a predominantly Native American construction company. So he seeks them out and meets the foreman, who's quite the playboy. So Carl enlists the aid of the sexy nurse, which pisses off the playboy Native American foreman's girlfriend as they barge in on his date. But he's quite smitten with the nurse, so she gets pissed and leaves. But anyway, this guy knows the legend and all this stuff, and he's just not quite certain that he believes in it, but his family raised him on this, and he knew all the details. So he explains that there were these rituals over this land of satisfying the bear god Manito, I think is how you pronounce it. Manito. Anyway, and it's something. The construction of the building has reawakened the entity, and so they try to go to the authorities and explain this. Of course, they're like, "You're nuts! Get out of here!" And all this stuff. So Carl is not going to give up, and the foreman accompanies him, and they go and witness an attack. And the foreman is really freaked out about it. But in the midst of the attack, some doctors, or maybe only one, I can't remember, but he got fried, and there were these X-ray negatives all over the floor, and so Carl said, "Hey, let's get those." So they pick them up and leave with it. But this is a bit of a leap in that I'm not entirely certain how he just jumps onto it that the negatives would pick up an image of the entity. But of course it does. Now it's several plates of X-ray negatives, so he and the foreman back at the INS offices tape them up against the lights on a window and put it all together, and are able to somehow figure out how to match, which like a jigsaw puzzle, to get a complete image of what transpired there. And it's this big swirling shape with an eye in the middle. I mean, had it actually been limbs or something of a creature that you see one and you say, "Hey, this kind of looks like an elbow," and then you attach one after another. But you wouldn't have thought like this jigsaw puzzle thing. I don't know, but I mean, how you jump on it and say, hey, the negatives of the X-rays might have caught what happened. I mean, the entirety of the attacks, it's invisible. There's a lot of electrical activity and that sort of thing, and sort of like fire breaking out, and then there's like almost like an earthquake. Cracks in the floor form and all that. Dry ice fog happens. So the foreman's had it. He's like, this is crazy. I'm not dealing with this thing. They come to the conclusion that generating heat in the area, which is normally much colder, woke up the entity. And he said if you could just cool it down, it would go back to sleep and be dormant, like a bear in hibernation. It's a bear god. So it attacks again. Carl decides to douse it with a fire extinguisher, which of course is cold. And well, that seems to work, although he's overcome with fumes and whatnot, but he's rescued and wakes up in another hospital, not that one. Otherwise he would have fried in that if the bear god was still around. But apparently he was subdued, and as a result of all of this, they decided to close the building down, demolish it. And the Native American company construction company came back in to set up like a lake resort to let the water. They had to drain a lake for this property, I believe, and this would keep the temperature cool and maintain the bear god in hibernation. Yeah, slumber. And so there you go. There's the solution. But of course, they're not going to say thank goodness for the heroic efforts of reporter Carl Kolchak. No, they didn't do any of that. And yeah, I don't know if the foreman ended up with the sexy nurse or his cute blonde girlfriend came back. I don't know. But he's quite the player, so he'll move on. But anyway, the bear god. Yeah. And also Carl's ability at jigsaw puzzles, I guess, with that imagery on the negatives. He said, oh, there's something here. These all match. And he just, but again, I suppose you could put it into he immediately believes anything after all he's been through and seen. So, of course, there's something to this. I got to look at it. And so, and he's, Of course, the foreman, he's witnessed the attack and stuff and saw the doctor fried. So he's like, yeah, all right, I'll help you put this picture together. Well, that's what they did. So anyway, there you go. If you find yourself tormented by a bear god, you really need to, drop the temperature with your air conditioner or something. Of course, that was part of the problem in the hospital. The air conditioner kept going out. It kept staying so hot. That was another thing, And had they managed to keep that running and keep it cold, but I guess the attacks of the monster constantly seeking out sources of energy, that's what it feeds on. I guess that wouldn't have worked either. I don't know. I guess you just had to really just dump ice everywhere. But eventually they just dump a lake on top of it. So there you go. That's how you deal with hungry bear gods. Yeah.